I don't know if this is good news or bad news that progressive Democrats are backing off of Abolish ICE claims at their first meeting since the midterms, because Abolish ICE is silly rhetoric that makes no sense. And a lot of people in the midterms, a lot of these progressive Democrats kept saying they were calling for abolishing ICE. And my question is, what does that even mean? What are you even advocating for? Some Democrats had legitimate responses. They said that the idea of abolishing ICE was about, specifically, reforming immigration and customs enforcement under the Department of Justice, because right now it's under the Department of Homeland Security. I don't know if that actually makes a big difference, but sure, maybe at least you've got some kind of argument. However, most of them were just simply saying we should abolish ICE. We saw the Democratic Socialists holding up signs saying abolish ICE, and a lot of people said it's not rhetoric. They said this isn't a game, it's not rhetoric, we mean this seriously, no more enforcement of immigration and no borders. That's the DSA's official stance. I'm not making that up. Go to their website. Why is it every time I talk about this, someone comments and says, Tim, you're lying about the DSA, they don't believe that, when it's literally in their constitution on their website, and I've made numerous videos about it. Please, for the love of God. If you don't believe me, the Democratic Socialists of America have a website with a constitution. You can look up all the photos of them wiggling signs in the air saying they want to abolish borders and they don't believe there should be any immigration enforcement, period. Okay? You can't have a socialist country and also invite everyone in the world into your country. What you're basically saying is, hey, we've got a bunch of stuff, we're going to divvy it up amongst all of our people, and anybody can come take it. What happens? Everyone's going to walk in your house, take stuff, and leave. Makes no sense. But it's not surprising to me then that we're seeing progressive Dems backing away from this rhetoric, because maybe that's all it really was. Rhetoric to get your vote. And as soon as they got your vote, they changed their mind. So I'm wondering now, is this good news or bad news? Is it bad news that these people were lying, essentially? Is it good news that they're not actually that ill-informed? Well, let's see what they say. And look, CBS is reporting this, but I think it's a bit more nuanced than just how they frame it. Some of the most prominent progressive members of Congress are backing off the idea they'll focus on abolishing the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, a proposal many of them pushed during the midterm campaign. Interesting. At the Congressional Progressive Caucus's first press conference since Democrats won control of the House, leaders fielded questions about whether they would continue to push legislation to get rid of ICE. Quote, "We're absolutely still going to be pressing that," said Democratic Rep. Mark Pocan of Wisconsin, the caucus co-chair. "However, I think our main goal of getting out of the gate is going to be the issues that we ran on across all districts, around healthcare, good paying jobs, around dealing with the culture of corruption." Pocan, who in July released a statement saying ICE must be abolished, added, "I still think many of us still have issues of immigration reform as a very, very high priority." But not your first priority. The slogan, "Abolish ICE," became both a rallying cry and a lightning rod during the 2018 election cycle for the far left across the country. Rep-elect Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Democrat from New York, was standing with progressive caucus leaders at Monday's press conference. She helped popularize the idea during her successful insurgent campaign. Ocasio-Cortez, who identifies as a Democratic Socialist, unseated 10-term incumbent Joe Crowley during the Democratic Party. Several other representatives-elect who also called for the abolition of ICE, including Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts and Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, also attended the news conference. So what is their official stance now? Well, obviously, many people are walking back the claim. Why? Because you're not going to win friends by saying we shouldn't have borders in this country. I will say this, though. Times change, and there's nothing you can do about it. And this probably presents a negative future for many people. For a long time, America has been on top in a lot of different ways, and now they're not so much on top, but we also have a weakening border system in this country. Trump is calling for stronger borders, and that will reinforce cultural ideas and the economy of the United States, but the left and the far left have further embraced opening borders, allowing citizenship to everybody, and just, look, what's interesting to me is that you'll have people who claim to be Democratic Socialists, right? That means they want free healthcare. Free healthcare is a misnomer. What they really want is government-run healthcare. Because nothing's free, the labor has to come from somewhere, be it the doctors or the people who pay into the system who then pay the doctors. If the government is going to run healthcare, we're going to get rid of private healthcare, okay? But you also believe there shouldn't be borders, and you also believe that anybody has a right to vote. You're basically saying everything within our economy is free to be distributed around the world. That's a very globalist point of view. And by all means, you're free to have that. But you have to realize that resources are finite, right? Maybe they don't realize that resources are finite, that we only have so many machines. Look, there's a like what's interesting to me about the healthcare stuff to sidestep from the abolishing ICE is that if a treatment doesn't exist and someone has an ailment, the doctor can say, "I'm sorry, there's literally no treatment," and those people will say, "Wow, that's unfortunate. Your life is going to end. There's nothing you can do about it." But let's say a company invests $1 billion in developing a treatment that will cure that ailment. And they say, listen, there's a brand new treatment. It was just developed. You are so lucky it exists, but because it's brand new, it costs 50 grand. People then complain it's not fair and that the government should be funding it to make sure everyone gets access to it. The problem is the latest treatments are really, really expensive because we're constantly iterating and developing new technology. Imagine if a new TV comes out. 3D, 50-inch, and it costs $1,000. Imagine if people complained, that's not fair, I should be able to have a 50-inch TV. Well, listen, man, right? It's new, it's expensive technology, it's hard to make. That's why it costs more, it requires more labor to go into it. I personally believe that healthcare costs are way too high, straight up. I'm not trying to insinuate that healthcare is anything like a TV. No, I think there could be exceptions for healthcare, for sure. And I also have relatively little issue with government support of healthcare. I would say maybe like 6 years ago, I was really into the idea of like NHS, and I moved away from it because I realized restricting healthcare doesn't make sense, right? If you say all healthcare should be government, what you're effectively saying is we're going to get rid of other forms of healthcare. Now I think a public option makes the most sense. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is these people no longer want to abolish ICE. Maybe the reason they're walking away from their claims about abolishing ICE is because they realize that if they want to provide healthcare to everybody, which is their main priority, they can't give it to everyone in the world. It's already going to cost something like $32 trillion to fund universal healthcare in the US, which is not something we have. We don't have that much money. There is not enough economic trade or taxes that can actually fund into that. And thus, when you realize opening up the borders entirely and not enforcing immigration means it's going to cost even more, how can you guarantee to your constituents you're going to help reduce the cost of healthcare while also saying you are going to be competing with all of these other people as well? Listen, when you go to a hospital in an area, they have a finite amount of machines, okay? When everyone's in line, it takes a long time to use those machines. And that's unfortunate because I don't want people to suffer from their ailments or to die because of their ailments. But the point is, you have constituents, citizens of this country that you are now representing. If you tell them, yes, we'll make the cost of healthcare go down, but keep in mind your wait times are going to skyrocket because we're going to let people who aren't citizens use those facilities too, I think that's when you get people who are going to be really angry. So maybe that's why they're saying, look, we kind of have to do, we do have to enforce immigration. Otherwise, you won't actually get health care. It's a problem. Would I like to provide aid and health care to non-citizens? Absolutely, 100%. And I think emergency services should absolutely be allocated to those who are not citizens of this country. Look, if I'm in France as a tourist and I break my leg, I'd be hoping their doctors would take care of me, right? Even though I'm not a part of their system. So in the U.S., There's a fine line between cutting everyone off who's not a citizen and granting this to everybody. If you're not enforcing immigration, then you're going to have a massive influx of people and you're not going to be able to support it or control for it. It's not going to work. Polka and two fellow Progressive Caucus leaders introduced legislation over the summer aimed at scrapping the agency. One of the lawmakers who introduced the legislation, Rep. Pramila Jayapal of Washington, took issue with the attention paid to the Abolish ICE slogan and wondered whether any of the assembled reporters had read her bill, which she said focused on reforming the immigration system. She said, "I would really love it if all of you would read the bill and if you would report on what was in the bill and how we propose building immigration that is humane, where enforcement is transparent, saves taxpayer dollars, and is effective." In July, her office issued a press release about the bill with the headline, "Members of Congress introduce legislation to terminate ICE and transfer critical functions to other agencies." Oh! And she said later Monday, she told reporters she had never used the Abolish ICE slogan. She said progressives need to stop taking the president's frame of this issue. ICE is the agency that is not accountable, humane, and transparent and effective. In what capacity? What evidence? I have seen nothing to prove this. So I think that this agency as it exists is not doing a good job for us. That doesn't mean we're getting rid of enforcement overall. And I just think there's a real distinction between abolishing an agency and abolishing the function. And it would be great for people to just think about that. Oh, okay. Terminate ICE. I'm sorry. Abolish ICE and terminate ICE are different sentences. Well, what can I say? Now that the politicians are in power, they're saying, whoa, 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 whoa. We don't want to limit government authority. Man, isn't it so beautiful how every time someone campaigns on restricting government access and government authority, they say, we're gonna abolish ICE, we're gonna limit government spending, yada yada. They get it, and what do? Jack up the prices, grant more enforcement powers. Nobody wants to give up power. Plain and simple. Now that these people are in office, they're going, well, I kind of do like that we have this ability and we have this enforcement. No matter what seems to happen, like where are the politicians who are straight up like, I'm just going to say no to everything and try and restrict as much government as possible? They don't seem to exist. They don't. And look, I'm not a hardcore right-wing libertarian or anything like that. I actually do believe the government has to have authority and has to exert authority in many capacities. I'm just making a point that the people who campaign on terminating ICE are now saying, whoa, whoa, I never said abolish ICE. No, you said terminate ICE. What's the big difference? Yeah. Hypocrites? Maybe. Maybe definitely. Anyway, stick around. I've got one more video coming up in just a few minutes.